નમસ્કાર, હું આદર્શ છું. વેલકમ ટુ આદર્શ એજ્યુકેશન સોસાયટી. Welcome students to fourth part of 14th chapter Water of Standard 6 Science. In the last part we discussed that 2/3 of Earth is covered with water. 2/3 of, that is 66% of Earth is covered with water. Second thing, we come to know that the water in the ocean and seas has many salts dissolved in it. That means the water is saline. So it is not fit for drinking and other domestic, agricultural and industrial needs. There are everywhere there is water in ocean and sea, 66%, but it is not fit for to use in domestic life, drinking like that, in agriculture also. That is what we discussed in the last part. Let's start this part. Open page number 138 in your textbook. Let's go for that. Yet oceans play an important role in supplying the water that we use. Though oceans supplies water that we use, how is it so? That is why, yet oceans play an important role in supplying the water that we use. Do you find this surprising? Do you find this surprising? Yes. After all, the water that we use is not salty. See, the water in the oceans and sea is saline, it is salty, but the water, and as the water in the oceans and seas is saline, we cannot use, it is not fit for use in our routine. But after all, the water that we use is not salty. We are using the water that is sweet water, we can say. We are not using salty water. And it is told that it is provided by oceans only. Then how is it so? Many of us live in places far away from the oceans, isn't it? Okay. Oceans provides us water, okay. We are using sweet water, okay. And many of us live far from the oceans. Does the water supply in these places also depend on the oceans? If we are living far from the oceans, then the water supply also from the oceans itself. How does the ocean water reach ponds, lakes, rivers and wells? Then the question is that how does the water reach, ocean water, we can say, ocean water reach to the ponds, lakes and rivers and wells? Which supply us water? Or what supplies water? Which supplies water? How come the water from these sources is not saline anymore? The main question is that how come the water from these sources is not saline anymore? See, we are getting supply from river, well, pond. Then why it is a sweet water? And in fact, that water in the river, in the pond, in the bowl, well, is supplied from ocean. Now, the water in the ocean is saline, and the supply from there, it is sweet water in the river. How is it so? There are many questions, isn't it? That is where the water cycle comes in. To solve all the questions, to answer all the questions, water cycle comes in. Role of water cycle. What is water cycle? So let's try to understand water cycle. Disappearing trick of water. First of all, before understanding the water cycle, we should understand disappear sorry disappearing trick of water. When we will try to understand, we will understand that then and then it is possible to understand the water cycle. So let's try to understand. How many times have you noticed that water spilled on the floor dries up after some time? Many of time you must have spilled the water, by mistake. You must have spilled the water in the classroom, at home, so you must have noticed that there is too much water on the floor at home, in the classroom. Many of time you must have noticed that. Okay, so what you have noticed, water spilled on the floor dries up after some time, and after 1 or 2 hours you will see that there is no water on the floor. It is dried up. The water seems to disappear. That means what? Before 2 hours, 1 hour, there was water on the floor, and after 1 or 2 hours, there is no water. That means it disappeared now. Similarly, water disappears from wet clothes as they dried up. Wet clothes. Water disappears from wet clothes also as they dried up. Water from wet roads. Okay, let me tell you more thing. See, we used to keep the clothes for drying. In the sunlight also, in the room also. But after 12 hours, after 4 hours, it depends. After 1 day, the water dries up from that clothes, that wet clothes. Now it is not wet, it is dry. Okay, water from wet roads, rooftops, and a few other places also disappears after the rains. When rain comes, we find that everywhere there is water, on the road also, on the roof also. Everything is wet in the outside. But on the next day, after 2 days, if it does not rain, then all the things dries up. Where does this water go? The question is that, where does this water go? Do you remember activity 6 in chapter 5, in which water with salt dissolved in it was heated? In chapter 5, to separate the water and salt. Why? Because the salt is dissolved in water, and to separate them, what did we do? Water with salt dissolved in it, that salty water, we heated it. What did we find? When we heat that salty water, what did we find? The water evaporated and the salt was left behind. We find that process of evaporation. Water get evaporated. As we heat the water, it becomes water vapor. That is, water evaporated, and at last the salt left behind. This activity gives us an idea. This activity gives us an idea that on heating, water changes into vapor. On heating, water changes into water vapor. We also realize that from this activity that water vapor does not carry away the salt with it. The main thing you should understand is that when that water becomes vapor. Now, previously it was salty water. On heating, that water becomes vapor, but that vapor does not carry salt with it. salt remains behind in that kettle, है ना, in that vessel. Water vapors so formed become a part of the air and cannot usually be seen. So once water becomes vapor, it becomes the part of air. Now we cannot see air, we cannot see the water vapor also. Then after, we also found that heating is essential to convert water into its vapor. If we want to convert the water into its vapor, then we must give heat to the water. So heating is essential to convert water into its vapor. However, we have seen that water changes into its vapor also from the fields. We have seen that water changes into its vapor from the fields also. Why? Because we know that we can get the salt from that land, है ना? We know that how to get salt from the sea water. That what we discussed in that chapter also. So we have seen that water changes into vapor also from the fields, roads, rooftops and other land areas. We also discussed in chapter 5 that to obtain salt, water from the sea is left in shallow pits to let the water evaporate. है ना? That what we discussed in that chapter, that to obtain salt, water from the sea, salt from sea water, we can say, to obtain salt from sea water, that salt is left in shallow pits to let the water evaporate. When that salty water gets evaporated, then the salt left behind in the shallow pits. From where does this water get the heat it needs to evaporate? Then next question is what? See, water requires heat to get evaporated. Okay. Then from that heat, that water gets the heat to get evaporated. Let us find out. So we will discuss this, from where the water gets the heat to get evaporated. That is what we will discuss in the next part. By this time, think about what. See, there are many questions. Some of the questions we solved, we get answer from the activities we did in the 5th chapter. So we come to know, though there are many questions. So think about it, read the textbook, and we will meet in the next part. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Take care of yourselves and we'll meet you in the next session. Thank you.